What is up, everybody? Matt Moda here to give you my NFL player prop bangers. We're talking Monday Night Football, Texans versus Cowboys. I'm going to have two players that we are backing on this Monday Night Football game, one of which is being laddered to a relatively juicy amount. So it's going to be 3 bets total backing 2 players. Of course, before we can get into that, we just got to do a recap. And instead of recapping Week 10, I'm just going to give you a recap on the entire season. I'm recording this before all the games have finished on Sunday. So I don't have a full Sunday recap for you guys, but on the entire season, it's been a very, very good year. We're up over 28 units on the year, and we're up over 28% ROI as well. So very, very happy with the results from the season. Thursday Night Football didn't go well for me this week. Hopefully, by the time you're watching this, Sunday was an amazing day for us, and we can continue that on Monday. Play number 1. Obviously, again, Texans versus Cowboys, Monday Night Football. We're going with Rico Gathers, 4+ receptions, plus 130 odds at FanDuel. Now, there are a couple different reasons why I like this play, backing Rico Gathers, specifically his receptions prop. Starting with the fact that reports out of Dallas is that Rico Gathers finally, they should have done this from week 1, is going to be the lead back for the Cowboys. Instead of trotting out the corpse of Ezekiel Elliott, the corpse of Dalvin Cook, and a fullback, the Cowboys are finally, per Mike McCarthy, making Gathers the lead back. Now, who knows whether it's actually going to be true or not. According to Coach Index, McCarthy has generally been pretty honest when he has said stuff. That's more so for injury news, but generally he's been an honest coach. So we're just going to go ahead and take him at his word. And on his Thursday press conference, Mike McCarthy said that Rico Gathers is going to be the lead back, and they're going to have a focus on getting him opportunities. So the guess here is that we're going to see a higher snap rate than what we have previously seen for Rico Gathers. Generally, he's been around the 50% snap rate. Only once has he played above that 50% rate. He played 71% of the snaps a couple weeks ago. In that game, he had 5 receptions on 6 targets, and that was a game in which the Cowboys were losing the majority of that game. Now, Dak Prescott did play in that game, admittedly, but having a backup quarterback generally leads to more checkdowns, depending on the quarterback, which Cooper Rush is absolutely a checkdown type of quarterback. So the fact that it's Cooper Rush instead of Dak Prescott, that does not scare me off of this play at all. If anything, it makes me like it even more, which we are going to get into in a little bit. But in terms of the matchup against the Texans, while they admittedly do not look on paper like a juicy matchup for running back receiving props, if the Cowboys are going to try to get Gathers involved, it's my guess it's going to have to come on the heels of receiving work as opposed to rushing work. The Texans have a very, very good run defense. According to DVOA, Texans have the 2nd best run defense in the NFL. They have the 6th best stuff rate and the 4th best adjusted yards before contact as well. Those last 2 numbers per fantasy point. So generally, they don't give a lot of push on the offensive line, or they don't allow a lot of push from their defensive line, from the offensive line to their defensive line. And Rico Gathers, that's kind of what the Cowboys need, right? They need to get him in space, need to get him able to break tackles and stuff like that, which, again, my guess is that's going to come in the receiving work. Another reason why this is a big play for me is the fact that Cooper Rush is playing quarterback for the Cowboys. Generally, I mean, again, depends on the type of quarterback, but when you see backups come in, they're a lot of times a lot less aggressive, which leads to more kind of dump offs and checkdowns and stuff like that. Now, he didn't go over this number in Cooper Rush's first start this year, which was last week. He only had 3 receptions, but you kind of have to look into that game. Number one, he only played 50% of the snaps. So that game could have gone the exact same way that it went, and he just played 70% of the snaps instead of 50, and he probably gets that 4th reception. And Cooper Rush just looked horrendous last year. Last week, he threw for an astonishing low 45 yards on a 56% completion rate. Now, when Cooper Rush came in a couple years ago, he played a lot better. I'm guessing this week he's going to play in the middle of what we saw 2 years ago versus what we saw last week. But if he's just like 10% better, that's going to be a lot better. It's going to lead to just a little bit more opportunity than what we saw last week. And 2 of the biggest targets for the Cowboys are banged up. CeeDee Lamb is injured. He's got a back injury. He's going to play. And Jake Ferguson missed practice on Friday with an illness. Now, they're both expected to play, but even if they're a little bit hampered, have their snaps or their workload reduced a little bit, that's just going to lead to more target volume for Rico Gathers. And, the backup quarterback's best friend is a check down target, which I think is going to be Rico Gathers. Again, we're going with receptions because I'm not necessarily confident he's going to be very efficient with those targets, but I do think that they're going to be there. I'm expecting him to have about 5 targets in this one, which should lead to 4+ receptions because those targets are close to the line of scrimmage with a high catch rate. So that's play number 1. On the other side of the field, the player that we are backing on the Texans, this is going to obviously be our ladder play. It's a Nico Collins receiving yards ladder. I'm taking him 80 plus receiving yards. This is best offered at plus 130 odds at Fanatics for a full unit, 1 unit mixed slam. And then I'm also taking Nico Collins 100 plus receiving yards for a half unit plus 260 odds at Bet 365. First game back from a hamstring injury in a game that probably is going to end up being a blowout, or at least has very high blowout potential. I'm cool with backing Nico in his first game back, right? I'm not necessarily scared off of those factors. The Texans, they need to get their offense rolling. And last week Nico Collins didn't play. They lost in a game in which they had 5 interceptions off of Jared Goff, and they ran the ball to Mixon for 25 carries for only like 46 yards. And it's been a disappointing season overall for the Texans offense. They haven't had a lot of time with both Nico and Mixon healthy at the same time, and now they have Stephon Diggs banged up. And this goes back to last year. Whether it's night and day when Nico Collins is in the lineup. When he's in, their offense is significantly better. When he's out, they're not. It's like a night and day difference with CJ Stroud, which obviously having your best receiver and probably your best player on offense matters. We see the same thing with the Eagles and with A.J. Brown. But when Collins is on the field, he gets a ton of work, and they were safe with him with this hamstring injury. So I think he's going to go back to playing 75% of the snaps, which is what he was doing before he got injured. And this 80-plus number, he's done this in 4 of 5 games so far this season. The only game that he missed was the game in which he got injured when he only played 13% of the snaps due to a hamstring injury. In that game, again, he played 13% of the snaps. He had 78 receiving yards in that game because he got injured on a 67-yard touchdown. That's when he pulled his hamstring. So 78 yards in that game, again, 13% of the snaps. In the other 4 games, 117, 135, 86, and 151 receiving yards. So that's 4 of 4 hitting the 80 mark, and that's 3 of 4 hitting the 100 mark. And more importantly in those games are the target numbers, 8, 10, 10, and 15. He's just incredibly involved in this offense. He leads the NFL in receiving yards per game. He's got elite stats across the board, not just receiving yards per game. He leads the NFL in yards per route run, 3rd highest yards per target, and 5th highest yards per reception. His ADOT, if you look at all the receivers that are in the top 10 of receiving yards per game, he's got the 2nd highest ADOT, which means average depth of target. The only person above him is DK Metcalf, which makes sense because he's a huge deep threat as well. And it makes sense just when you think about Nico Collins, right? He's involved in generally chunk deep plays for this offense. And he's got a very good matchup against a bad Cowboys defense. Looking at fantasy points, which looks at what the receiver is good against, what the quarterback is good against versus what the defense plays and how they fare. They literally have this as the best expected matchup for Nico Collins. And the reason why is because the Cowboys run man coverage at a slightly above average rate, about 13th in the NFL. So closer to average, but slightly above average. But they're terrible when they run man coverage. Literally, they allow the highest fantasy points allowed per dropback against wide receivers when they run man coverage. Fantasy Points is a fantasy website. That's why they're giving us just in terms of fantasy points. It just tells you how much success receivers have when the Cowboys run man coverage. That's a death sentence against Nico Collins, who averages the most fantasy points per route run against man coverage of every receiver in the entire NFL. Most fantasy points per route run against man coverage. Now, for Nico, that includes receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Obviously, that includes everything. I like the yards because you just get a lot of chunk plays with Nico. I also think his anytime touchdown is good as well. You can get that at plus 135 at FanDuel. I don't want to take both and then just get screwed if he re-injures his hammy or if the Texans get out to a 14-0 lead, not from him, and then they just kind of play it safe with him. So I don't want to get double screwed, but I do think that his anytime touchdown is a good look as well. I just like the yards a little bit better because of all the chunk plays. And that's all we got. 2 players to back, plus 3 plays, plus 1 ladder play, equaling 3 total bets for this game. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this, and because of that, you can like the video, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And the last thing I'll mention is that I mention it at the end of every video. I do have a dub club where I send all my plays out for $5 a month. It gets everything that I'm playing sent directly to your phone. As soon as I decide what a play is, I send it out. You can get it via text, email, or Telegram. It gets you everything I'm playing across all sports like the NFL and the NBA. Admittedly, the NBA's been cold, but the NFL has been red hot, so they're kind of equaling each other out there. It's all sent to my dub club, so if you're interested, check that out. If you're not interested, no problem. You can still get everything for free on both YouTube and Twitter. It's the same plays I just send them out first to Dub Club so you can get them before the odds change and stuff like that. Or if you just don't want to watch the YouTube videos, you can get them that way as well. But that is all we got. I appreciate everybody for watching, and have a good one.